Hello. Today I want to focus on the alarm system that MultiTool supports. We have both a software and a hardware system. The hardware uses off-the-shelf devices that are fairly inexpensive. You can find the details in the documentation. And the software obviously is a built-in function of MultiTool. So I think it's easy just to show you and get started. So what I'm going to do, I've installed the drivers. The drivers come as part of the installation of MultiTool. They don't get installed, but all that is covered in the manual. So I'll run up MultiTool. It's easy to show. And I'm going to do it in replay because the alarms work just as well in replay as they do in acquisition, and it gives you the ability to test the alarms to make sure they do what you want, or rather they do what you think they should do. Okay, so it's perfectly valid to do it in replay. The only alarm that's not valid in replay is the stack alarm, but that's because there's no stack on display in replay in real time as there is in the acquisition. So a quick thing about alarms. The alarms are per test or project or whatever you call it. Okay, so hardware alarms is greyed out because I don't have a test loaded. Okay, so I'm going to use demo 2 because it's an Axel D cell. Okay, and it's picked up the file already, which is because I've been using it. Okay, and we're going to ignore this message for now. I'm going to go through it. So when you load a configuration, it looks for the alarm data, and if it finds one, it pulls it in, parses it. Any issues with the file, lets you know. Obviously, the alarm that's been pulled in is tied to a specific piece of hardware, which is not connected to the computer. So quite rarely it's gone, you've got an alarm, but the hardware's not there, mate. Alright, so I'm going to just kill that and start again. So I'm going to clear this. So hardware alarms, a blank sheet. Okay, so what do we have here? We have a list of the alarms down the left hand side, and we have a view on each individual alarm on the right hand side. Now we can add more alarms if there's enough demand, but for now we have a waterfall alarm, a waterfall stall alarm, speed alarm, a dynamic stack alarm, and the standard blade stack alarm. Okay, but some of these are slightly more complicated than the others, and these two are pretty complicated, so I'm going to stick with the simplest, which is a speed alarm. Perfectly valid because you might want an overspeed warning, and if your vehicle goes over a certain speed, you might want to know, especially if you're doing automatic testing. Connect the hardware alarm to a safety system and you can shut the vehicle down. There's lots of applications. I'll go into that later on, but I'm going to create a speed alarm. Okay, so select your alarm, click on create, we've got one. Okay, so a few things to notice. Green is because it's enabled, grey not enabled. So you can sort this column based on what's enabled, what's not, type, hardware code, and priority. Now some of those will be explained shortly. The pink bar is the alarm type, so different alarm types have different colours, so you can clearly see which ones are of which type. Okay, and then we've got a warning triangle here. The warning triangle here is because we have an alarm, but it's not currently doing anything. If you see at the bottom, set to 0 to disable, set to 0 to disable. If you want a bit of help, just click on the actual left hand side of the columns, left column rather, and you'll get a help down here. Now if I save that by clicking OK, you should see, there you go, a warning message, and it's just reiterating the fact that hey, you've set an alarm but it doesn't do anything, is that really what you intended to do? Okay, to get rid of that message, if you did have a complicated alarm and you didn't want to lose all the settings, just disable it, and then you won't get a warning message, because it's only looking to make sure that you've done what you think you're doing. So if you have an alarm and it's enabled, it really should do something, otherwise why is it there? And it's just reminding you that this alarm doesn't do anything. So I've disabled it and that message has gone away. Okay, I'll keep clearing this window so we can keep refreshed. Hardware alarms. I'm going to re-enable that, and to make this go away, I'm going to have, we've got two settings for this particular alarm. We've got a warning level and an error level. So I'm going to put the warning level at 6,000 RPM, and you can see it's up here and the symbol's instantly gone, the warning symbol's gone. And I'm going to alarm it at 6,500 RPM. Okay, so I think we'll cover the software version of it first. So if I click start, we've got the speed here, 4,000. I'm going to move across to 6. So in the info bar, which is down here, which shows various things, we can ignore the activity, we're just looking at the speed for now, just to demonstrate the alarms, how they work. So the info bar, you should theoretically get a warning. Well, you will get a warning at 6,000, then you'll get the actual alarm at 6,500. So if you stare at the speed, and watch down here, 6,000 RPM, we've got a warning. Okay, speed has a warning level of 6,000. Now, there's only room for one alarm down here, and so that depends on its priority. I'll cover that in a minute. If I move that up to 6,500, we've got a full-blown alarm. Okay, so we've got two types on that. We've got a warning and an alarm, and there's various settings for different alarms that you can alarm on, lots of parameters that you can define. So I'm going to stop that there, and I'm going to go back, and click on the alarms and just cover the other settings that I've done that now. I've done enabled, speed alarm, we've got a warning and an error. We've seen the output, the software output appear on the info bar. The more priority the alarm has, the more it will be shown on here. So if that makes sense, I'll explain the priority setting. So the priority, the higher the value, the more important it is. So if you had 2 or 3 alarms and they're all priority 0, and then you had another alarm with priority 1, and they all occurred at the same time, the higher priority alarm would make the info bar. Okay. So hardware code. This doesn't matter for software, but for the hardware, which is basically got an 8-bit output port, or several 8-bit output ports, but you're allowed to send a code to that port when the alarm occurs. If you've got a computer or a control system or anything attached to the port, then when the alarm goes off, this code here will be placed on one of the ports, and the computer that's listening or monitoring that port can then know what kind of alarm it's had. So for instance, it could tell the difference between a speed alarm and take one action, or a stall warning alarm, take another action, or whatever. So the code that is you type in here will appear. So I'm going to type 7 in there. Okay, I'm going to leave the priority alone, and okay, USB hardware ID. This is where do I want to send that hardware alarm. And as you can see, there isn't any. Okay, and if I close that, and that will get saved, and look down here, I suspect not many people have ever noticed these two icons. These are the devices. Okay, and you can have up to 2 devices, and there's nothing connected. If I plug the device in, you should see, okay, it's been detected. It knows the device is there, and it says, okay, you've plugged a hardware device in, but you haven't actually connected anything to it, so it's red. So I'm going to go back to the alarms, and I'm going to say, okay, the speed alarm, there we go. That's the serial number of the device. It's written on the device. I say these are off-the-shelf items, so you can buy them any as you want. You don't have to buy them from us. In fact, I prefer you bought them from the manufacturer. We do sell, and I'll show you in a minute, a breakout card for it, so you can make testing a lot easier. So I'm going to assign that to that. The moment I do that, we've got a little symbol appeared that says this alarm's being fed to 1, and you can only have, like the software can display one at a time, the hardware can display one at a time. There's 2 of them, therefore you can have 2 concurrent alarms, okay? Depending on the priority. A warning from a high priority will always override an error from a lower priority. So the priority is very key. All right, I'm going to click OK. And you'll notice the icon here has gone green. It says, okay, I've got some hardware and you're using it. That makes sense. So I'm happy. So I'm going to pause there while I set up a second camera. Okay, I'm back, and you should better see this as an inlay. So we have a view now on the hardware. You have top left, we have the watchdog, or the handshake, or whatever you want to call it, to prove that the hardware is still alive. So if you've got a supervisory system this is plugged into, it should expect that. If it doesn't see the watchdog on bit 0 on the top left port, then it knows something's wrong. It's either not connected or something's not switched on. So it knows that the system's not primed and not running. Okay, it's just a sanity check and a bit of a safety feature. Okay, so I'm going to pull back to 5.9 and I'm going to press start. Okay, so our speed alarm is now being routed to the hardware as well as the software. So as we get to 6,000, there we go. You can see the bottom set of ports, the hardware ID of 7 has come out, which is the bottom 3 bits. And you can see on the top right port, bit 1 is set. That means that this is a warning. We have a warning with code 777 coming out of the device. Okay, as we get to 6,500, if you watch the top right, the bit has now moved across from warning to error. The code is still the same, 777. And if you were worried about this, then you've had a chance to do something about it. If I go down the other side, you can see at 6.5, we go from error to warning. There we go. Error code still on, alarm still active. So either the warning or the error bit are high, you're in an alarm condition, or you're in a warning condition, and the code will always be present during that. But as the speed goes below 6,000, you'll come out of warning and the alarm will go away. There you go. So we're back. Demo 2's loaded again. I'm just going to go around the loop one more time. You must have a config loaded because the alarm is per configuration. Okay, and it's kept in the root of the project or configuration folder. Hardware alarms. Okay, and I'm just going to add a few other types just so you can see the colours. Now obviously if there's a requirement we can extend these. It's relatively easy to alarm on most things, but you can see that we've got some hardware plugged in and it's device serial number 23405 and it's green down here, which means everything's happy with that. And you can see different types, so stall green, stack orange, dynamic stack purple, waterfall blue, speed, whatever that colour is. Okay, and one of them's being routed to the hardware. I think that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it for today because that's quite a lot of information. So as I say, if you want the hardware, the details of where to get it is in the manual, or one of the manuals. I think it's in the replay manual and the acquisition manual. And you just need the software device driver installer for the hardware. And then MultiTool can talk to it happily. Just one thing I might point out, I'll just click OK on that. Yep, and as I said before, stack alarms are not enabled, it's just reminding you. And then some alarms are enabled will do nothing, and that's, again, that's the stack alarm that's referring to, say 5 alarms. And also if I go and pull the device out, because it's a USB device, you'll see, okay, you got a warning, the device is gone, and then you get another warning saying, hang on, something wanted this device and I can't find it anymore. And then you've got some devices will do nothing, but that's back to the stack. So these are the 2 messages I really wanted to show you. Warning that the device is gone, and that, and lo and behold, no devices detected in our alarms panel. Okay, I think for now we'll call that a day. Thank you very much. And one last comment for those of you watching this in the future is that there's a slight bugette that has gone unnoticed, and when you cancel out of the alarms panel using the cancel key, it will reset the speed warning levels. If you click OK, so if you go in, change nothing, click OK, you're fine. But if you press cancel, these get reset, and version 4.0.1 onwards has that fixed. Just a warning. Thank you. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Cheers.